Hi, English Nomad here, and thank you for joining me on this episode. I decided to do this as a response to one of the comments on one of my videos regarding what equipment am I using to shoot these videos, and also what camera equipment am I using to shoot the stills photographs that I take and also create slideshows in my videos. As you can see, and I'll just zoom down, I'm using my Osmo with my iPhone connected so I can see what I'm doing. I'll just zoom down to the table and you can see the equipment there. Now I have several cameras, so we'll start with the stills cameras. So at the very basic end of my camera equipment, I have this Nikon AW130. The AW130 is a point and shoot camera. It's I use this primarily for when I'm taking photographs or shooting video in areas where I'm likely to get wet, like swimming, down at the beach. It takes absolutely superb photographs. I've travelled with this camera and it's bulletproof, it's shockproof, water resistant, takes fantastic stills photographs and takes really good video as well. The only lacking part of this camera is it does have an inbuilt microphone, so the sound quality isn't fantastic and it doesn't give you the ability to add an external microphone. So I only use this for short clips of Bronson swimming in water, me swimming in water, and when I want to do stills photographs. But at the very basic level, this is a fantastic camera. I will put the specifications of this camera up on the screen now, so you can see the specifications in terms of its megapixel count and all the other relevant information that most people are interested when choosing a camera. But as far as a travel camera goes, it's hard to beat this camera in terms of value for money and bang for buck. It is a really good camera. I've had it a couple of years. It has been a great camera for travelling and still is a very, very great piece of equipment in my photographic armoury for what I'm doing with this channel and with my other social media pages. Next up is this camera. It's an SLR camera. I've had this camera I think about around 7 or 8 years. I got it when it first came out. It's the Nikon D7000. It's an SLR. It's an APS-C format SLR, which means it's got a crop sensor. And all that basically means is it has a slightly smaller sensor than the professional end full frame cameras. And when we talk about full frame, what we're saying is when you compare it to the old 35mm film format when cameras used to use film. So a full frame camera is equivalent to a 35mm film camera. This crop sensor is exactly what it says. The sensor is, I think it's 2/3 or 3/4 of the size of a full frame sensor. It has its advantages and its disadvantages, but at the time this was the second highest model in the range that Nikon do in their APS-C format cameras. And like all SLRs, the body is an important factor, but the more important factor is using good lenses. Selection of lenses is very important when choosing a camera and what you're going to use it for. Generally the kit lenses that come with these cameras, which I did get with this camera, they're a good lens generally, but they're of a lesser quality than the higher priced lenses that you can buy from the likes of Nikon, Sigma, Tamron and there's quite a few other lens manufacturers. It is a fantastic camera. What I have found now is its ISO capability, and ISO, for those who don't know, is the sensitivity of the sensor to light, and you can change that. So there are three things that you can change which affects the exposure. One is shutter speed, the other is aperture, and the other one is ISO. And in the old days, when you used to buy 35mm film, you would buy ISO starting at 100, and generally the consumer brands of film, it was ISO 100, 200, 400 were what most people used to buy. You could get higher ISO films, but they were speciality films for people who do a lot of night photography or low light photography or special application photography. This camera at the time had a really good ISO range, but compared with the newer batch of SLR cameras, it's a bit limited. So I'm going to make an announcement here, because I'm really pleased to announce I've introduced a new camera into my armoury. This is the Nikon D500. I'll put the specs for this and the specs for the D7000 up so that you can compare the specs. This was a new model I think about a year ago, and generally regarded as a professional body. It's got a much higher specification than the D7000. It has a lot more capability in terms of its ISO range, so for night photography and the sort of things that I would like to do more of, which is astrophotography, this is going to be a lot better, because I'll be able to set the ISO higher, reduce my shutter speed, and get really crisp, clear photographs without noise. Noise is something that you get once you increase your ISO number. Noise is like a grainy looking texture that you can see when you zoom right in, and the higher the ISO, the more noise that you're likely to get. But this, because it has a much broader ISO range, the noise that you get, say at ISO 3200, is hardly noticeable compared to this camera, which when the ISO is cranked up over 3000, you start seeing the noise and it will detract from the quality of the photographs. But as I said earlier, it's really important that you marry your body, your SLR body, to good lenses, and at the moment I have 3 lenses. The first one, which is a new lens, and I'm really blown away by this lens, is the Nikon 16-80 lens. It's an f2.8-4, and that refers to the f-stop, or the aperture opening size. It's a vibration reduction lens, and it's a very highly rated DX lens. Now this body is a crop sensor too, but it's the top of the range crop sensor. This is a professional level crop sensor camera, and for wildlife photography, for sports photography, this is very highly regarded. But that lens is an absolute beautiful lens. I've only had the camera for less than a week, so I'm just learning how to use it. Very similar controls to the D7000, but it has an awful lot more functionality. It's got an awful lot more settings and stuff that you can tweak. It's pretty much a manual camera. You have aperture priority, you have speed priority. What that means is if you set it to A, you control the aperture, the camera will then set the speed for you. And in speed mode, you set the speed. And situations where you might want to do that is for sports photography, or if you're photographing moving objects and you want to get a little bit of blur in the photograph. Well, that's achieved by setting the speed, and the camera then takes care of the aperture to make sure that the speed that you want is achieved. And then you've got programmed and fully manual. Fully manual, obviously you control everything. You control, it will still do autofocus, but you control the aperture, the speed and the ISO to get the outcome that you want in terms of the photograph you want to achieve. The next lens I have in my bag of tricks is this, which is another DX format camera lens. It's the 18-300 f3.5 to 5.6 GED. It's a DX lens, as I said, so it's specifically designed to work with crop sensor cameras. It's another very high quality lens. It's not a kit lens. They don't package this in the cameras as a kit unless you specify it. You might get a bit of discount if you do. But it's a very, very good quality lens. I use this one primarily where I want to get the length, the focal length, like for example shooting wildlife, birds. At the lower range of focal length, it's adequate for taking landscapes. It starts at 18, whereas this one starts at 16, so I get a little bit more of a wider angle with the 16 to 80 lens than I do with this, because it's obviously 2mm more in terms of its width in terms of the numbers that they quote. The next lens I have in my still photography setup is this. It's a 35mm f1.8 lens, designed again for the DX format. It's an absolutely beautiful lens. It's a great lens for portrait photography, and it's also a great lens for doing video. So this camera here, the new camera, has full 4K shooting capability. So with this lens on this camera, it's going to be great for doing videos where I'm going to have the camera on a tripod and I'm going to talk to the camera like I am doing now. So those are my main cameras for taking stills. I do obviously video, and all these cameras are capable of doing video, but my primary tools for video are what's on the tripod now, and I'll take some photographs and put that up. It's the Osmo, the DJI Osmo Plus. The Plus is the next model up in the range of the Osmos, the highest one, and that has a optical zoom. What that means is the standard Osmo just has a digital zoom, so it zooms in digitally. It doesn't have an optical zoom where the elements inside the lens move away from each other to create the zoom. This camera obviously does have that. It gives you a slightly shorter range in terms of its focal capability. So if you're shooting selfies, this camera will do a selfie in focus from 500mm and up. And it's an absolute fantastic camera. It's took me a little bit of getting used to. I use the app to see what's going on the camera, and the app will tell me if the picture's in focus, and I had to learn how to use the focusing system on this camera, because it was, what I found was I was getting comments on some of my videos that I looked out of focus when I was doing the selfies, and that's because I hadn't figured out how to focus the camera properly. And it's actually quite easy. You just touch the area on the screen you want to be in focus and it focuses. So now I've learned that, it's actually become a very useful tool for doing selfies and also for walking around. It's a stabilized camera, it's on a gimbal. So imagine, if you will, the camera's in my hand now. As I move my hand around, the camera stays perfectly stationary. So for walking, jogging, or in the vehicle, or any area where you're going to get a lot of camera shake, this eliminates the camera shake. Great for doing the in-car footage. I use this for doing the in-car footage when I'm driving, and even on the corrugated roads, everything was shaking really, really violently. But as you will have noted from my, I'm just going to come back up to my face so you can see me talking. There you go. So as you'll recall from my videos where I'm shooting the in-cab footage of the camera pointing outside of the vehicle, even though it was really rough and corrugated, the images I got back, the video footage I got back, was really smooth. There was very little or no camera shake at all. You saw some movement in the camera, it would move around, but it wasn't shaking, it wasn't jerky like you would get if you were shooting with, say, a GoPro on a suction cup, because it hasn't got any inbuilt stabilization. You can stabilize it after the fact, software can do that, but what you end up doing is cropping it. It's basically what it does is the software finds the center of the image and then measures the amount of vibration and then crops it down so that it stabilizes it. So you'll lose quite a lot when you use digital stabilization as opposed to mechanical stabilization. Mechanical stabilization, you get everything that you shoot. So that's why I prefer this camera. And now finally on to my last piece of equipment I use for shooting the video footage is my drone. This is another piece of equipment which is a fairly new acquisition in my camera equipment. It's the Dji Phantom 4 Pro Obsidian model, and all the Obsidian means is it's a colour, and I chose this because it's dark. You can see it. If you're flying a white drone in bright sunlight, sometimes they're very difficult to see. This being black, it does show up, you can see it, and I like to keep my drone pretty much in line of sight. I don't like to lose sight of it. Yes, I've got the app and I can see where it is. I can see it on the map. I can see where it is roughly when I look at the scenery around, but still maintaining line of sight is really good, and having this dark one helps with that. Now, I purchased this because I had the DJI Mavic Pro Platinum, and after just over a month it developed a fault, and I was very lucky in the fact that I dealt directly with the retailer and they helped me to get a replacement, and I opted to go for the next model up in the range. It's a couple of models up in the range, and for the extra $700 this is far superior. I'll put the specs up, but it has a 1-inch CMOS, that's the sensor in it, so it's got a 1-inch size CMOS, which is the camera sensor. The gimbal is buttery smooth. It's an absolutely fantastic camera. I haven't fully learned how to use this, so I'm still learning how to use it. I need to buy some filters so that I can tweak the camera settings in full sunlight to get that more cinematic look on my footage. I've used it for shooting the vehicle as I'm driving the vehicle with the drone following behind me, or in front of me shooting me coming towards the vehicle. You'll have seen footage of me crossing the Pentecost River. That footage was shot with this drone, and it has a really good remote control. This is the remote control for it. I can mount my iPhone in there, and the phone connects to the remote, and there is no lag between what the camera sees and what I see on this. Whereas with the Mavic Pro, sometimes you get a little bit of lag. and that would frustrate you because obviously you want to see what's happening through the lens of the camera immediately without any lag. This is a superb piece of equipment. So that's the camera equipment pretty much covered. Now, one of the other things that's really important to me, and I hope it's coming through on this video, is the quality of the audio. I have invested a little bit of money in buying good microphones. So the one that I'm using right now is the Rode Link mic system. So it's a wireless microphone. So this is the sender unit, and that's coupled up to a lavalier mic, which has a dead cat on it. They call that fluffy thing a dead cat. I hope Gizmo's not listening. Yeah, it doesn't look anything like a cat, but it's furry, and what that does is that cuts out the wind noise from the microphone. So if you're shooting video in a windy environment, or there's a lot of background ambient noise, this helps to muffle some of that out, and it captures the voice only. Has a really good range. So this is the sender. There is a receiver which is currently attached to the camera that I'm shooting on, and this works really well when I'm shooting with the camera further away. So if I was hand holding the camera, I'd just have the microphone, this particular microphone, I'd just have it plugged directly into the camera. But with the camera a bit further away, having the wireless mic is a really good thing to have, because I'm not trying to trail a cable over to me so that you get good quality audio. The last piece of microphone equipment I have is this one here. This is again another Rode product. It's the Rode Videomic Pro. Incidentally, both these setups have the same thing. You can amplify the audio. So if you're shooting with an SLR, which has a really low quality audio amplification built into the camera, you can turn the sensitivity down in the camera and turn the sensitivity up on the microphone, and then you get much better quality crisp sound. So this is a really great microphone. You can set it at -10 decibels, and you can set it at +20 decibels. This will mount via the hot shoe mount on my camera. It will just mount straight on top of the camera like that. So if I'm shooting on the tripod, I can have it set up like that, and depending on how far I am away from the microphone and camera, I can tweak the settings on this to get the optimum sound. And the same with the wireless video mic I'm using now. So in a nutshell, guys, that's the equipment I'm using. I'm really excited about this new SLR, as you can probably tell, as I am with the drone. So I hope that you can see that I've invested really heavily in getting good equipment to improve the quality of my videos. But all of that is pointless if you don't have a method of editing it. So I do have my MacBook Pro. This is the main tool I use to process the video footage. I'm currently using the application that came on this computer, which is iMovie, and iMovie works really well. It's a very intuitive piece of software. I can split, cut, copy, edit the video footage and photographs I get down in that piece of software to get a really good quality video at the end of it. I may invest later on in better software, and I may also invest in better photo editing software. I'm currently using Photo on this. Photo is a very underestimated piece of software. Until I started using it, I didn't know how powerful it was. But it will deal with raw format photographs. So A lot of people are familiar with the fact that when you shoot photographs, you shoot them in JPEG. A JPEG is just a compressed version of the raw footage put out in a particular format which most computers recognize. You can edit them, but you're limited with the amount of editing that you can do with a JPEG. With RAW, you're getting the raw data. You're getting the data that came out of the sensor in raw format, and the software will be able to do an awful lot more with that raw data than it can with a JPEG. So I am now shooting predominantly stills in raw format because I can do a lot of corrections for under and overexposed photographs. I can also correct for white balance and other stuff that you can't necessarily do as easily with a JPEG. So that's it. That's my camera equipment explained. I hope that you learnt a little bit out of this and you get an appreciation of the equipment that goes into producing these videos. As I've said, I'm still learning. I'm still learning how to do these videos. I'm still learning how to use the equipment. And I hope that you can see that over time, the quality of the videos is improving, as well as the narrative within the story. The story within the videos that I'm trying to put across. So, as always, please like this video. It's very important that I get feedback on the videos that I produce. So like, share, and if you're not a subscriber, I ask you again, please subscribe. Click the little bell icon down here so that you get the notifications. Look forward to getting your comments. So until next time, Mike signing off. See you later.